Well, hello there. It's Chris again. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, however this video finds you. I'm here in my home, sitting down watching TV, when suddenly over the internet and through my little message box here on the bottom of this phone, came across an email. It said, hey, I have a comment on one of my YouTube channels. The video that I put up together some years back, someone commented. So I felt compelled to respond back. There's multiple comments over each video that I post. Some people respond. Some people just give me the thumbs up, which is nice. Either way, I appreciate you guys watching the videos. This particular video talks about spiritual warfare and actually how to overcome the battles that we face and the attachments and the addictions that we live in. And in the comment box, one individual, I'm assuming it's a atheist or someone that really has maybe at some point recognized that there is such a thing as life, as we know, and through life experiences, he or she has made a truth claim. And that truth claim in the comment specifies that there is no such thing as God. And so the comment addressed to me or to the video was, hey, get a life. There is no such thing as God. So in my response back, I pointed out clearly that there is. So who is right? Who is wrong? So here we go. Thanks for tuning in. Here's my answer to the question, prove to me that God exists. Now, to give you that answer, I have to go back almost 25 years ago. I was at Portland Community College in Oregon. I attended I believe a religious theology class of some sort that was a prerequisite to some other classes that I took. Along with me was my future wife, who was a whole different belief than I was. And the professor that I don't recall his name, but he was, a decent professor. He basically opened the topic and said to the entire class, hey, prove to me the existence of God. And so the first thing that he did, he identified the students. And so we all put up our hands. The question was, how many of you guys are atheists? So a lot of people put up their hands, hey, we're atheists. And what is an atheist? Well, it's the formality of thought, the understanding that God does not exist. How many of you guys are agnostics? So a lot of students put up their hands, said, we're agnostics. And what is an agnostic? Well, it's believing in a God at some point in life and then changing your mind and no longer believing in that same God that you once believed. That's basically the agnostic understanding. So we got atheists and agnostics. And then we had two individuals in the class, me included, that believed in a God, that put their hands up. How many of you guys believe that God exists? So it just so happens that I put my hand up, being a Christian, and on the other side of the room, there's this young lady, which ends up being my wife today. She was a God-fearing person. She was a whole different religion than I was. And she put her hand up and said, I believe in a God. There were two individuals that believed in a creator or a God, supposedly, both from two different religions. And the rest of the class, out of 40-something students, were either atheists or agnostics. So guess what the professor did? He aligned the two individuals that believed in a God together and said, hey, you know what? Why don't you guys prove to us, the class, the existence of God? How do you prove that God exists? And so formulate your theory and present it to the class. The proof that God exists is a truth claim. Now, with truth claims, there are facts, and facts that all add up. So in this case, this truth claim is a fact measured through his manual of life, the Bible. The manual that God has created for all to hear and listen and read, just like the facts that we believe in today. For instance, if I tell you 50 divided by 2 equals 25, that is also a truth claim. And it's measured through the mathematical computations found in your general studies, your general math book, either in middle school, in high school, or in college. You've learned that things add up because there's such a thing as truth claims. So if I tell you 50 divided by 2 equals 25, you can tell me that that is accurate because you've already done the math. You've already learned in your math book that that is accurate. Saying that God does not exist means that you haven't looked for him in his manual, in the Bible, in the Word of God. Just the same, one can say that there is no such thing as math. And every day, perhaps, think about this. Every day, perhaps, the world simply lives and computes the algorithm of life by mere coincidence. Perhaps the banks or the financial institutions, the World Stock Exchange, and maybe even our credit cards are simply a coincidental calculation that just happens. If we drive a car, and I'm assuming you drive a car, and I believe many people do in today's world, but if you drive a car, you believe and you follow the rules and the regulations that are found in our driver's manual. 55 miles an hour, 100 feet of a turn, you must signal. You got to be 16 to drive, those kind of things. The rules that apply to the road are usually found in the driver's manual. We can't actually drive as fast as we want to. However, we can't ignore the rules. We can't ignore the regulations, the statutes, the ordinances. We can't ignore all these things and then deal with the consequences. The same with God. Why is there a double standard? Just as all other truths in this world exist, so does God. We can only break the speed limit until we get caught. And then we must deal with the consequences. The same with God. God lives and is available for us if we ignore him or not. He is, he will be, and he was forever and ever and ever. We can ignore him. He gives us choice to do that. But just as all other truths and truth claims in this world that exist, so does God. To know God, just like to know how to drive, we must open up the manual and read. We must then go out in life and practice driving. We must recognize how far of a turn must we signal, and so on. The same with God. After you get your license to drive, your driving habits become natural. And slowly you advance into being an awesome driver and simply react to the rules of the road. So, how do you know that God exists? This is a simple answer. To know that God exists, just like to know how to drive, we must open up the manual and read it. We must then go out in life and practice driving. We do that with the cars, right? We go out, we read the manual, we read the instructions, and we go out there and test, either with our parents in the youth of our life, and we practice parking, we practice driving, we take defensive driving courses, all that. We practice. The manual that instructs us, we practice those things. The same with God. We must recognize that God exists. We must recognize that he has a manual as well. The same with God. You've been driving, you feel like you have a right to drive, you understand and you've seen and you've read the manual that teaches you about driving, and you've also believed that the society we live in has given you the right to drive because there's a manual, there's a license, there's an authoritative power that gives you and authorizes you to do so. The same with God. When we read his manual, when we put what you or I read into practice, his manual will equip us to pass the tests of life. And furthermore, his manual, when you practice, truly practice his driving habits, that is God's driving habits, will help us to recognize that without him in our life, the only way to get through life is to randomly drive without following the rules, thereby risking death and spiritual destruction. So with God, everything is possible. Without him, it leads to death and spiritual destruction. If not, if you don't read, that is, then everything you tell yourself becomes whatever you want to believe in. However, one day, reality will catch up with all of us, and it always does. Don't live in the matrix of your mind, but wake up and look into the real truth. Now, I encourage you to do so, and only then will you find that the truth claim, if God is real or not, will actually add up. Thank you for watching. May God bless you.